It's a great pleasure for me to talk about the Financial Times. I'm from London. I work in the head office there. And AI is the hot topic at the moment in our newsroom and in many newsrooms across the world. And it's confronting many of the leaders of our organizations, the editors, to understand how you can use AI and how you cannot use AI. Generative AI is a really volatile technology for our organizations. It's really interesting to hear other colleagues' perspectives and experiences. They're all very different at the moment because this is a very live subject. Everyone's approaching it differently. I think we're at another really big moment in the digital revolution. The first was the web, the second was mobile, the third is AI and generative AI. And let me just give you 4 items of advice. If any of you are in newsrooms or journalists or in media, one is to embrace the technology and improve AI literacy in your organizations, because there's a temptation for some people to reject the technology. The second is to try to cultivate critical thinking and judgment and non-AI skills. The third is to have continuous learning in your organizations. And the fourth is to invent new roles in your organizations. Not the old roles, the traditional roles, but roles that maybe combine engineering and ethics. I'm in the director of strategic partnerships, and one of my areas is to work with technology companies on AI, and we're looking at areas like customer experience, search, and intelligent curation. But I just wanted to highlight 4 areas of concern which I think play into the AI debate at the FT. All of them pertain to the transformation, the digital transformation of news from print. And broadly, I want to try and point towards some solutions rather than just point out the problems. One is, and it's partly a function of AI, is the proliferation of misinformation and fake news. This has proliferated in the digital era, where increasingly, I'll put the 4 up there so you can see them, where news is increasingly taken from social media rather than media platforms. It can sway public opinion, influence election outcomes, and in some cases so blatantly mislead that it can cause harm. And I'd like you to draw attention to some coalitions of news groups that the FT's in. For instance, one's called the Trusted News Initiative. It was led by the BBC, which is a coalition of news groups to try to have alerts where you spot fake news and you communicate with the large tech platforms like Google, Microsoft, and Facebook and ask them to deprioritize that bit of fake news. One of the hottest topics, the second one, which is our point today, is that since the launch of ChatGPT is generative AI applications in journalism. It's confronting us all. Clearly, it has many advantages in areas like advertising, marketing, search functions, curation, and summarization. But the question we have to answer is how this influences content journalism itself, and whether the reader or the viewer can determine between what's written by a human and what's written by a machine or a bot. And there's a really big threat for many news organizations that they get disintermediated by the technology, which means that simply readers will go to a chatbot to find information rather than go to a news source, because you can simply ask a question and get the answer. It's a very efficient way of getting the information if it's right. At the FT, we've tried to set a set of rules and guidelines about AI, and these will no doubt evolve. But in brief, the editor has given an assurance that our journalism will be human and that what you read is written by a human and is not written by a machine. And that's because we feel that we have to protect our standards of sourcing, of attribution, of fact-checking. And at the moment, the technology is not secure enough for this to be guaranteed as factual. And she published an open letter, you can see it on ft.com, essentially telling everyone why we were staying with the human rather than embracing the machine. A third highlight there is cyber threats. I'm not going to go into detail there, but many of our organizations have attacks on their websites. Some of these are trying to jam the website or to stop us publishing. We're always worried that some content will be changed, but some is just simply trying to hold us for ransom and ask for money because there's been some sort of data breach. And then finally, there is just the difficulties that many media organizations face with their commercial models in an age of digital disruption, and unable to sustain these time-tested advertising and subscription models. Many smaller and regional titles weaken and then close down. This is a big blow to the diversity in the media. And in this environment, it's very difficult to find the levels of investment required for sustaining quality journalism, independent newsrooms, or indeed investing in technology that is responsible. AI, this is a very dense slide. It's there simply to show you that AI can be applied right across the publishing model. You'll see there that it's in editorial, it's in production and distribution, it's in sales and marketing, it's in video, it's in text. It can be applied all the way through the model. The question is, which bits do you apply it to in your organization? And this slide was given to me when I visited Bangalore. It's a slide produced by Infosys in Bangalore in May, where they were just trying to prove to us all the various AI-first strategies that you could have in a publishing model. So we've had to learn in our newsroom a whole new language about AI in recent months. There's a real mission to spread AI literacy throughout the newsroom, to the reporters, to the editors, to people for whom this is new, so that they understand the glossary of things like machine learning, large language models, big data, chatbots. There's a whole new vocabulary about journalism that is very different to what we had just 5 years ago, just 2 years ago. And although we're talking a lot about it now because of ChatGPT and OpenAI, clearly generative AI is not new. It didn't start this year. It's been around for a decade. And in fact, many of the more text generative AI models are pre-ChatGPT, and they're there for grammatical correction or word prompts to more quantifiable topics like the weather and sports and market news. And market news is where we go next, because in financial journalism, and Mr. Park showed a slide there of some market reports that company results stories, and the advantage here is, especially for a wire service like Bloomberg or Reuters or AP, you've got speed and you've got volume, and supposedly if a machine does those sort of stories, it frees up the human to do more value-added stories. That is the theory, and let's hope that's so. Next, we had to put in place a set of rules in which we, as I said earlier, asserted the human. We feel that's a unique selling point for the FT. It might not be a selling point for every media organization, but for us, as a niche business paper, global business paper, we wanted to tell our readers that if you read us, you are reading somebody who actually writes the story behind it. And likewise, we won't publish images that have been AI generated too. This won't, however, stop us from Experimenting, I think it's important to experiment. You can't put your head in the sand and ignore AI. And we're looking in areas like data mining, translation, and images. But just on translation, we just launched a new e-paper that translates the FT into 25 different languages. If you look at it, it's not perfect. It very much feels like 70% rather than 90% or 100%. That's not a premium experience. It's useful for people who don't speak English, but it's not what we would call FT journalism. But above all, you have to be transparent to your readers or your viewers. You have to tell them what they are seeing. So we published a set of principles. There they are, if you want to go through them. There are 4 there. I'm just going to talk about 3. One is not to allow AI to compromise our integrity of our journalism, to commit to data privacy, and finally, to protect our own intellectual property, brand, and business. And the last one is there because probably many digital platforms have already scraped publishers like Nikkei, FT, the Mail Group, for their content, and already our content is being used in large language models without our permission. And that's a copyright infringement, and probably those large digital tech companies should pay us for that. And there's the editor, Rula Khalaf, who published this letter to readers to be as transparent as possible. So let's quickly look at some of the uncontroversial uses of AI in our newsroom. Transcription, so recording into text, grammar checking, comment moderation, social media. It's not as exciting as some of the work that Mr. Park showed you. It's really some of the sort of basics of rather than the content. 2 of the most powerful areas we think where you can apply AI is summarization. This is especially important for younger readers who don't want to read long articles. They just want to get the guts of the article. That's very popular. The other one is popular for reporters, which is classification, where they can essentially categorize different areas of text, unstructured text, so that they can sort through it to find stories. Needle in a haystack, reporters find it very useful to find relevant data in stacks and stacks of data and to do trend analysis. This might be for regulatory findings or social media posts or even satellite imagery. It's used a lot in investigative journalism. Comment we have comments under our articles at the FT, and some are valuable comments and some are not valuable comments. And AI can help you surface the more valuable comments and deprioritize those which are, in some cases, racist or ill-informed or plain wrong. AI can help you do that. Second last slide. We have trialed AI in headline writing. And I put this up there because actually the AI is rather good. And when we gave this to a room of our journalists and said which one was written by the machine and which one was written by the human, people couldn't tell. But I've put an arrow there so you can tell that the one on the right is written by the machine. But actually it's not a bad headline. And we were impressed by that. So just in summary, here are some guidelines that we think. Have some rules that you can apply in your newsroom about where you use AI and where you don't. Be clear with the readers when it is machine generated. So for instance, again, in Mr. Park's example, if you do have an AI newsreader, make it really clear that it's the AI newsreader and not a human, just in case they're wrong. Be prepared to adapt as the technology evolves. Do what supports your business model best, but also do what supports your people best. Defend key journalist tenets like accuracy and authenticity. There are clearly risks with AI still called hallucinations, unpredictable outcomes, and where the machine just gets it wrong. It's not fail-safe. It's not foolproof yet. That's a quick resume. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the questions.